everybody, we're back with another big deck tech this week. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit subscribe right here on YouTube to find out when we make some new stuff. Anyways, let's get into it. This week, what's the deck?
This week, we're doing Alesha, who smiles at death, only I'm calling it Alesha, who smiles at artifacts. This deck went through a bunch of iterations. I was starting with something else entirely, and then it turned into something else, and it turned into something else. But I think I ended up here. I think this is a cool idea, and I know that this idea isn't finished. I know that we can go further than this, so I can't wait to hear what everyone has to say in the comments on Twitter or on Discord, things like that. It's going to be cool. But the whole theme of it is Alesha, but with mostly artifact creatures. So let's read Alesha, who is our commander for this one. Do you want to take it, Andy?
Yeah, sure. Alesha, who smiles at death. 2 and a red for a legendary human warrior with first strike. They're a 3/2. And whenever Alesha, who smiles at death, attacks, you may pay white, black, so hybrid Orzhov twice. If you do, return target creature card with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped and attacking.
Great. So a couple of neat things about Alesha. If you've never brewed with Alesha before, Alesha is a sort of quick commander with first strike, 3 power, so you know you want to be attacking. Bringing back creatures with power 2 or less straight into the battlefield, attacking also implies they will want to be attacking too. So we're pretty low to the ground deck. We're a little bit on the aggressive side, not in the sense where like we're trying to just take one person out before everyone else gets rolling. But Alesha is all about value, all about recursion. There's so many lists of Alesha out there, and there's so many staples. You could just auto-fill a deck with all the staple 2-power creatures, and your deck's done. I didn't want to do that. There's so many valuable artifacts as well. I wanted to make it as many artifacts as possible, and then we get to take advantage of general artifact shenanigans on top of Alesha shenanigans.
Cool.
I'm all about that. So because we're doing all artifacts with 2 power, what's our engine? Our engine for artifact creatures includes some of the following. We got Burnished Heart, 3 generic for an elk. It's 2/2, and you can pay 3, sack Burnished Heart, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. This is an all-star even in a traditional Alesha deck, because if you're in the early stages of the game, you can attack with Alesha, pay the 2 Orzhov to bring back the heart, and if your heart gets through for damage, great, 2 damage. If it doesn't, and you have 3 left over, if they block it profitably, you just sack it to get 2 more basics out. And in Mardu, that's incredible. So for 5 mana, you're going up to every turn Alesha's allowed to attack until you decide I've got enough mana that I want to just go nuts with it.
Bernie the Hitman Heart.
Aha, yes.
That's him.
Yeah.
He
What's
always
another
gets
engine?
his lands.
Yes.
Another one that we're going to bring back for our engine purposes, a Sky Scanner, recent card here from M19. 3 mana artifact. It's a creature. It's a Thopter. It has flying. It's 1/1. And when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card.
Great. The Mardu colors, as we know, not great at drawing cards reliably. This is another way, if we need to do that, we can just keep recurring a Sky Scanner, keep drawing them cards.
You got access to black for card draw in Mardu, but obviously this is something that's nice that you're not losing life as you do it, which of course is what black does.
True. We cannot skip Solemn Simulacrum, classic sad robot for generic for a golem, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, search up a basic, put it into play, and when it dies, draw a card. This is amazing for Alesha, because even if they do decide to block the Solemn Simulacrum as you're attacking, then you just get that card anyway. Like this does double duty.
Yeah.
Fantastic card to recur.
Great.
Yeah, so that's sort of some of the engine cards. These are some of the key artifact creatures that we're going to want to be bringing back. Now let's add some more recursion to it. Artifacts are amazing at recursion. That's something that artifacts are just so good at. So on top of that, we have a few more things. I'll mention the first one here, Scrap Trawler, 3 generic for an artifact creature, which is a construct. It's 3/2. So you'll notice the power is outside of Alesha's range, but whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand a target artifact in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. So if we're sacking that Burnished Heart, we can get a 2-drop artifact back out of our graveyard into our hand instead of the battlefield. This is a great way to juggle like creatures that are tough to bring back with Alesha because they won't survive and we might want them to. So Scrap Trawler is just a fantastic engine card to have on the battlefield. Also an artifact.
Next one, of course, is Mirror Retriever, too. You might recognize some of these if you're a Modern fan. There's the from a Krark Clan Ironworks deck. But Mirror Retriever is a 2-mana, 1/1 artifact creature mirror. When it dies, you return another artifact card from your graveyard to your hand.
Great. Again, so let's think about Mirror Retriever as it synergizes with Alesha. So it is an eligible target for Alesha. And if our opponent takes the free block because it's just a 1/1, it's going to die, and that's how we're going to get our bigger artifacts back from our graveyard, the one that Alesha can't reach. And this gets artifacts that aren't even creatures, so this is a great way to open up our whole graveyard to recursion that isn't just on Alesha's attack ability. It's super fun.
Nice.
And of course, if we're just going to take advantage of the synergy, we're going to want a little bit of self-mill. Do you want to take this first one, Andy?
Oh, I love this one. One of my favorite cards ever. It's Stinkweed Imp, 2 and a black for a 1/2 flyer. And it has a weird version of Death Touch. It's before,
yes.
I think it's before Death Touch was keyworded, right? I think it was.
Yes, and they didn't retro it because it has a subtle difference from true Death Touch.
Right. So Stinkweed Imp says whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. So Stinkweed Imp must deal combat damage for that creature to die. If it deals anything else from like some kind of weird artifact, like equipment going on and it pinging or something like that, it's not going to kill the creature. So, anyways, that's just a quick rules note. So it has a cool version of Death Touch, and it also says Dredge 5, which is, if you're new to Dredge, is that if you would draw a card, instead you can put this card into your hand and then mill 5 from the top of your library into your graveyard.
Amazing.
So you can always have access to this guy while filling up your graveyard. It's great.
Stinkweed Imp's great. Alesha can get it back, or we can dredge it back. We love dredging it. I'm not going to talk about a bunch of sack outlets, but we have a bunch of ways to do that too. Another nice self-mill artifact. This is an artifact specifically, so it synergizes amazing, is Codex Shredder. It's 1 generic for an artifact, and you tap it. Target player puts a top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard, so you're milling yourself for 1 every turn if you want to, which you would. And now on its own, that's generally not probably powerful enough to go, but you can spend 5 and tap to sacrifice Codex Shredder, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Target card. So this is another. So now we've expanded our graveyard reach. So Codex Shredder is a way for us to get any card back from the graveyard. Now we're starting to get a little bit more expansive here. We got Mirror Retriever to get back Codex Shredder, which gets back like our non-artifact cards. But fortunately, that is a line we have access to. Even though it's complicated, we probably won't need it, but it's just nice to know it's there.
It's a great card. I mean, I love Codex Shredder in these types of decks. Like, I've got a Duretti deck, which sees a lot of these cards as well, right? Your Scrap Trawlers, your Mirror Retrievers, and so on. But Codex Shredder is a real all-star in that deck, because not only are you filling up your graveyard, obviously, very slowly, albeit, but you're able to grab, like, a counterspell. You're able to grab, some kind of draw, like an enchantment or something. You're able to just grab anything from your graveyard with Codex Shredder and then recur it. It's very strong.
It's instant speed returning to your hand too. So like if you have an instant spell, as you hinted at with the counterspell, we don't run counterspells really because
we don't have any blue, but yeah.
But white and black have a lot of great instant speed exile effects. So like if we have enough mana, we can nab those all at once. We can get it back and then cast it. And I just want to put this seed in the back of your head. Codex Shredder does sacrifice itself, right? So Scrap Trawler cares about artifacts smaller than it, so there's nothing smaller than a Codex Shredder in this deck. But let's just keep in mind that so far a lot of things we're talking about have the ability to sacrifice, and like that is something that this deck also wants to take advantage of.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of quickly ran through a few categories, just some general, like, here's some of how the deck works. Here's some of the engine of it. That's just the basics of it. But now I want to get to the fun stuff. This is a segment we like to call Neat Moves.
Working on a
neat moves. Okay, so first neat move admittedly falls a little bit outside of our scope of like artifacts only. This is going to be a neat move for any Alesha deck, I think, but it is very neat nonetheless. And it hinges, one of our new C18 cards is a piece of this neat move. So I want to talk about Loyal Unicorn. 3 and a white for a unicorn. It has vigilance. And it has Lieutenant. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control Alesha, your commander, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to creatures you control this turn. Other creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. So you're not going to take any combat damage and everything's getting vigilance. Loyal Unicorn is amazing. Yeah, it's just great.
Is it the best of the loyal creatures?
I think it's going to be a little bit deck dependent, but
yes, it is deck dependent, and here's why I think it is, because the
Okay.
decks that want Loyal Unicorn, the decks that want, so the ones that want to be attacking for effects and not necessarily, obviously not dying or whatever. I think that those decks, in those decks, Loyal Unicorn is like an A, right? Like it's like, oh, this enables my strategy so well, whereas like the blue one, which I think maybe people might argue is the best one, allows you to draw a card with your commander out at the beginning of your upkeep. It's like that card's still good, no question about it. But like it's never really an A. It never hits an A, no matter what deck you put it in.
Right? Good point.
So like obviously it's deck dependent, but in the decks that will want these specific cards, I really think Loyal Unicorn is like the best of the batch.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And so the other ones are dealing with give +1/+1 counters, make people lose life, or make a Thopter token. Yeah, like maybe that Thopter token one like gives it a run for its money in the right deck. But
I mean, I have a deck that really wants that, and giving me one Thopter at the beginning of combat at the beginning of my combat is like, that's good, but it's crazy in the decks. Like in this deck, Loyal Unicorn is amazing, and in Derevi, where you want to be attacking with everything, so you get all these tapping and untapping triggers, like, and giving vigilance, like this card is insane. This is like an A+. Like this is in these decks, this card is so good.
So I want to highlight. So Loyal Unicorn is Loyal Unicorn is so good in this deck. It gets us into this neat move, but it is not the neat move. Again, just wanted to highlight vigilance. Mm-hmm. The way it interacts with Alesha is the creature that you get out of the graveyard. That's a good question. Can you stack your triggers so that Alesha's trigger goes first and then Loyal Unicorn giving everyone... Like, it's going to come to the battlefield tapped and attacking, so it doesn't untap it.
Right.
But can it be protected under the prevent all combat damage?
Here's why I think it is. Because Loyal Unicorn says prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to creatures you control this turn. It
is a triggered ability, though, at the beginning of combat on your turn.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, then I guess no.
I'm not sure. But if you can trigger Alesha's trigger first so that the creature comes out before Loyal Unicorn's trigger resolves, you should be able to...
Like, is that a blanket thing? Like, does that affect all creatures for the rest of, like, even if you flashed one in, does that count?
So the trigger...
It seems like is it a, what's it called, a, like, replacement effect?
Wait, I don't think these are replacement effects. I think these are...
Prevent all damage that would be dealt to creatures you control this turn? What is that? What do you call that?
I think those are... I forget the name of those. Like, things that are just happening.
Yeah.
No. State-based action? No. Okay.
Oh my God, rules people. Please help us out. So sorry.
My best guess.
This is the number one show that will frustrate you if you are a rules person.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My best guess is that the trigger is only to check for Lieutenant. And that everything else is true.
Yes.
Period. That's my guess.
It feels like that's what it is.
Anyway, if we can or we can't, giving everything vigilance is incredible. It's going to protect Alesha number 1, which is the top one. But this is the real neat move person. This is Iroas, God of Victory. Do you want to read this one, Andy?
Yeah, Iroas is 2 red-white for the legendary god. 7/4 indestructible. As long as your devotion to red or white is less than 7. Iroas isn't a creature, and we haven't talked about devotion forever. We always skip over this part, but it's just the number of pips you have. So if you have, including the 2 pips on Iroas, the red and the white one, if you have 5 of any of those combination of colors in addition to his 2, so 7 in total, that turns Iroas into a creature. Anyways, he also says creatures you control have menace, and prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control.
Now, this is key. So, one, it's generally better if your gods don't turn into creatures. And in this deck, there's very little danger of that happening because most of our stuff has no pips. It's mostly artifacts. So, Iroas is usually protected from creature exile. Enchantment exile will always get a god, no matter how you slice it. But the key difference between Iroas and Loyal Unicorn is Iroas protects all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures, not combat damage.
Yes.
Aha, so here's the neat move. I want to talk about Starstorm. X red red. Starstorm deals X damage to each creature, and it has cycling for 3. So it's an instant, so we can declare our attackers, and then once Iroas prevents all damage, we can drop a Starstorm, and our whole team takes no damage, and everyone else takes a bunch of damage. And then we just get through for that free attack.
Wow, that's like it turns Starstorm into a one-sided board wipe.
It's
Essentially.
X-based, right? So it's not
X-based,
going to deal with their huge creatures, but Iroas is already giving people menace. So if they only have one creature that survives the one-sided wrath, then the menace protects everybody else anyway.
Yeah, and you obviously do this before blockers so that it even makes their decisions even harder.
Yes, of course. Again, Loyal Unicorn doesn't protect against this. Starstorm does. And, I mean, I'm not going to highlight this, but of course we have Boros Charm in the deck, so we can just give our creatures indestructible anyway before we do a move like this.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's a neat move.
That is a very neat move.
Okay, now do you want to cover our next neat move, Andy?
Okay, so the next neat move starts off with another god. These are great cards to have. Their impact on the board is so it's always huge, right? It's always something that you just can't ignore. So first, the one we have here, excuse me, is Theros, God of Passage. 1 white black for the legendary god, indestructible. All the gods are indestructible. All the ones from Theros, anyways. Yeah, all of them are.
Yeah, the ones that aren't indestructible are the double-colored Hour of Devastation ones, but they come back to your hand if they die.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So Theros is a 5/4. You need 7 white-black pips to make it a creature. Whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life. So, you know, the common strategy with Theros is to have a bunch of things, sack them, and target one of your opponents so that they eventually can't pay the 3 life anymore, and then they start giving you back your creatures and so on, right? Okay.
I just want to remind us of Burnished Heart real quick, right? That's sacking itself all the time.
Yeah.
And now our opponent gets to choose, do I let you bring it back with Alesha later and pay life, or do I just give it back to you now and save everyone the trouble?
And it's also good to point out here that we have a lot of artifact creatures in this deck, so that's just important as well. And here's the next part of this little neat move. So we've got Theros out there doing his thing. People are probably paying 3 life for a while, and then eventually you get a Pia's Revolution down, 2 and a red for the enchantment that says whenever a non-token artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to your hand unless target opponent has Pia's Revolution deal 3 damage to him or her. So Pia's Revolution acts as like another Theros, and since it's triggering off artifacts instead of creatures, you're getting the artifact. If you have an artifact creature, you're getting both.
Yeah.
You're getting Pia's Revolution and you're getting Theros, and they have to decide, are they taking 3 damage? Are they taking no damage? Are they taking 6 damage? What's happening?
Well, the 3 is not an option because you would never pay 3 and then give it back.
Exactly. I'll pay 3 and then give you the creature back. Of course. Yeah. So you're never going to do that. So you're either paying 6 or you're paying nothing. And I think, that 6 adds up way too quickly. So,
well, you know what? Actually, now that I talk about it, I never occurred to this before, but you could split the 2 up and just maybe like, okay, both of you're doing the artifact, you're doing the creature. So like, do you each so they both have to pay 3 to keep it in the graveyard, so that, you know, maybe you don't want to convince your opponents to like work together against you, but that is one option. So there is one world where they pay 3 collectively.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good call. But this just makes it a nightmare, even if you do it that way. Even if you do split it up and one guy's like, I can't take the 3 life, and he gives it back and the other guy did pay the 3 life, it's like, no!
Oh, man. I love it. I love it. What a neat move.
So this is a very, very neat move. I love this. Doubling up on effects like this is what makes them like tough to deal with. So this is great.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to highlight Codex Shredder, because like it is an artifact that sacrifices itself. So many of our artifacts have a way to sacrifice themselves. I mean, I'm not going to talk about it, but obviously Commander's Sphere sacrifices itself, and then they're like, ugh, do I give it back for that or not? Oh, I love it. I love it. Another neat move, this is Andy, this is your discovery a while ago, Copper Gnomes. 2 generic for an artifact creature. It's a 1/1, so already it's an artifact creature, so everything cares about it. It's got power 2 or less. Alesha can bring it back. 4, sacrifice Copper Gnomes, choose an artifact in your hand, and put that artifact into play. This becomes a very neat move if we've got things like Scrap Trawler or we've got Mirror Retriever. So the Mirror Retriever dies, bringing any artifact back to our hand. Copper Gnomes lets us put the big ones back that Alesha can't get straight onto the battlefield. We're sacking Copper Gnomes, so everyone has to do the double Pia and Athreos triggers to do it. And then we're just going to bring them back with Alesha anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's just an unfortunate loop for our opponents.
Yeah, Copper Gnomes getting those big artifact creatures into play very easily.
Very easily.
And finally, another neat move. This is a lot of artifacts. A lot of artifact decks love this neat move, but it's Mirror Works, the 5-mana artifact that says whenever another non-token artifact enters a battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 generic, and if you do, create a token that's a copy of that artifact.
Yeah.
So as Alesha is bringing back things, you can pay 2 to make other ones. You can do all kinds of stuff.
Right. So you're making token copies, which don't care about Pia and Athreos. I mean, Pia says non-token, but Athreos obviously just doesn't care about tokens because no one would ever give you back a token because you can't.
You can't.
But yeah, so like it just adds so much flexibility. Like we can get our Burnished Heart back and sack it now, or we can get 2 Burnished Hearts back and save some mana to sack both of them later. The Mirrorworks token that we make does not exile at end of turn. Right. I think that's important to know.
That's important to know.
And so we can just up our shenanigans a big time with Mirrorworks. You know, I love it.
I love making like a Mirrorworks copy of something small like a Codex Shredder or something. Just because having 2 Codex Shredders doesn't seem like it's that much, but now you're milling 2 every turn, and you've got 2 ways to get these back. And then of course one of them is more permanent than the other. So like you can sack the one that goes to the graveyard, keep the token one up for milling, and it's great. It's actually it's awesome. You don't need a high-powered card to go under Mirrorworks. You just need anything that generates value for you.
Yeah, big time. Oh, I love it. I love it.
That is a neat move.
Neat move. That's going to wrap up the neat move sections. But I did have some surprises and discoveries for the deck. I think this is a card I've never really thought about before, but it's pretty neat. You got to turn your head sideways to read it. It's one of those split cards. It's Hide and Seek. So this is from Dragon's Maze, and is it Dragon's Maze? No, it's Guild Pact, I think.
Yeah, this is from original Ravnica, yeah.
Dissension, I guess, is the set. So you can't fuse these together. You have to pick one or the other, and there's no aftermath, so it's like, whatever one you get, you don't get the other one. But, so Hide is a red and a white. Put target artifact or enchantment on the bottom of its owner's library. Cool. That's pretty cool.
That's good. That takes care of a god.
Take care of a god. We have black as well. You have to be able to run this card. So we can exile artifacts and enchantments very easily. That's not usually a problem. But I love that the Seek option is white-black instant. Search target opponent's library for a card and remove that card from the game. You gain life equal to its converted mana cost. Then that player shuffles his or her library. So we're always going to run this for Hide. Hide is always going to be useful. We're always going to want to do that to an artifact or an enchantment. But in those rare cases where you run into that combo deck where you're like, oh, I know what you're going to do, you have Seek as an option to just snipe those combos if you need it. It's just such a nice bonus to have in your back pocket for those rainy days. But Hide is a fine front, I'm going to quote unquote front side it, that you are always happy to have in the deck.
Yeah, I've talked about these types of cards before, the ones that pull individual cards out of like a deck, or obviously the best versions of these are when they search their hand, their graveyard, and their library, because what if they have it in their hand,
Yeah, that sucks.
But like Seek and cards like it, I think there's a real place in these for Commander. I'm not talking you should throw 5 or 6 of them in a deck or something, but including one, especially one like this where you've got it on a split card, so you're not even really giving up a lot of the opportunity cost of running this is pretty low, considering Hide is an effect you definitely take. Yeah, having a card like Seek or any of the other ones in there, I think is actually a good move. Like you said, those decks where you know that it's like, oh, he's just gonna try and get Omniscience and do all this stuff. It's like, bam, your Omniscience is gone. Like you just can't get at it anymore. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like just being able to do that to that deck when it's definitely a meta call. And if your buddy runs a deck where that the linchpin is one specific card, like if you took Epic Experiment out of my Epic Experiment deck,
No.
I'm not doing so good.
No.
It's all that deck wants to do. Now it could still play Magic. You're not kicking me out of the game by taking that card out of there. But definitely that you hinder the deck's ability a lot. So yeah, I love cards like that.
Yeah, big time.
Oh, and another one here. I'll read it, but you tell us about it. It's
Sure.
Wasteland Scorpion. 2 and a black for a Death Touch 2/2 with cycling for 2.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's nothing flashy. It was from Amonkhet. It's a dumb common. It's like 4 cents. But I think in an Alesha deck, I wanted to be mindful of any 2 power or less creature that had cycling on it. Again, being able to draw more cards is so useful. And Wasteland Scorpion, our intention is to always cycle it early and then get it back with Alesha if we need something with Death Touch out of there.
Right.
Being able to put a Death Toucher in tapped and attacking is very fun because your opponent kind of is going to lose something to it. And if they don't, they take 2 damage and your Scorpion untaps, and then you have a Death Touch blocker for as long as you need it.
Now, I know you put this in there because of the cycling, like in addition to obviously the Death Touch synergy with Alesha is great.
Yes.
But would you consider running Thorn of the Black Rose instead?
Ooh.
Which is a there it is. It's it costs a bit more. It's 3 and a black. It's 1/3 with Death Touch. But when it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch.
You know what? I hadn't thought about that. Yes, this is a straight upgrade, Andy Hull.
Yeah, right. Because you're definitely going to draw the card because they can't attack you between your attack phase and whatever. So you just play the Black Rose, play Thorn of Black Rose rather. You're going to get that card at the end, and then it's going to dissuade those attacks as well. So and then if they do get rid of it, Alesha gets it back.
Wow, Andy, this is great. Great tip. Great find. Nice. I love it.
Sweet.
I'm putting it in.
There you go. Yeah, Thorn of the Black Rose. Sweet. But I mean, for decks that like cycling, Wasteland Scorpion is a solid pick, I think. Like, yeah, don't sleep on cycling ever.
No.
All right, so what are we looking like for this budget report?
This is where we take all the cards and throw them straight into our graveyard, and the ones that are $2 or less come straight back into our pocket.
Yeah, that's right. We get to attack people and then we get them back.
Great. So our new budget report format, the deck's value is $107. And the statistic we want to bring you is how many of those cards bring up half the value. How many of the cards are about $53.50, and that is 10. 10 cards make up half the value of this deck. Number 1 most expensive card is Athreos, God of Passage. That's coming in at about $15. Would love a reprint of some of these gods sometime if they could. Next most expensive card in here is Sidisi Undead Vizier. 3 black for a legendary zombie Naga 4/6 Death Touch exploit. When it enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice another creature or itself. It doesn't have to be another creature. When you exploit a creature with Sidisi, you may search your library for a card, put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. This is a tutor effect. I included one because, man, if I got Athreos out, I really want Pia's Resolution, so I'm going to try to make that happen.
Revolution, but yes.
What did I say?
Resolution.
Pia's Resolution?
I mean, hopefully it will be a resolution to the game.
Yeah. But this is an $8 card. It's very good, but it's not an artifact. Alesha can't recur it. It's nice to sacrifice other artifact creatures. We like that ability, but we don't need it. We can save $8 on it.
Yeah, because sometimes in some games this goes nuts and you get a ton of cards with it, but in some games it just equals to like a diabolic tutor, basically.
Yeah.
Cool. And the third most expensive card is Iroas, God of Victory, the one I read earlier. The Boros god, the 7/4 indestructible that gives menace and prevents damage to your attacking creatures. It's $5.50.
Yeah. They've reprinted this one a few times. It's actually shop back up. So,
Interesting.
if they do reprint it again, maybe grab a copy of it. But it's so good in an attacking deck. This is definitely one that we keep. We're not going to cut this one.
Yeah, Iroas is great.
Yeah.
Sweet. So, the 10 cards there, that's a pretty small portion of the deck, so you can definitely save some big time money with making some key cuts here.
Oh, yeah. Can we talk about the 3 stars of the deck?
Ooh, can we ever?
Okay, so
Don't we
here's
usually
where...
do 3 stars first?
Oh, I don't know. Do we?
I don't know. Maybe not. Anyways, let's do it right now. 3 stars of the deck.
Yeah. So this is where I put more of our like general artifact shenanigans in there. And the new commander set gave us Saheeli's Directive, X, red, sorcery, improvise. You can tap artifacts to help pay for it for colorless. Reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of artifact cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed that way that weren't put in your battlefield into your graveyard. So it hits a bunch of artifacts. We're going to put them straight into play. The ones that doesn't hit go to our graveyard, which if they're not artifacts, we don't really care if they're in our graveyard or not, but that's probably going to be mostly lands. But man, Saheeli's Directive is going to do some work. And if we really want to, we probably have a ton of little artifact creatures. I didn't mention this, but if you're looking for 2-power artifact creatures, most of them don't cost that much. So like we can get a lot of little ones that like tutor up lands, that like draw us cards, little utility guys. So they can help improvise out a big Saheeli's Directive.
Sweet. I can't wait to cast this card. Here's one of my favorite cards that I have cast before. It's Marionette Master, 4 black for the human artificer. 1/3 that has fabricate 3, so you can either throw 3 +1/+1 counters on it or make 3 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. Both most decks that you will run a Marionette Master, both versions of the fabricate look like they're going to be great. So you decide based on the based on the situation. And whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So if you got a ton out there and you don't really care, it's 1/3s. You just need more. You want more creatures for whatever reason, you get those. Otherwise, be prepared, opponents, to lose 4 life every time one of my artifacts dies.
And can I point out that the actual power on Marionette Master is 1. So you can bring this back with Alesha.
That's great.
And then, of course, I didn't talk about all the sack outlets, but I got a bunch. So if you can bring back a Marionette Master, bump it to 4 power, and then just sack a few of your other creatures, you're on top of if you have a Pia's Revolution or an Athreos, so your opponent's like, what do I got to do? I'm taking 4 automatically, and now I got to decide to take another 3.
Oof. Yeah, it's tough. Marionette Master is a great card in these types of decks. Love it.
And Marionette Master leads into our number 1 star of the deck, which synergizes with Alesha and Marionette Master specifically. It's Cranial Plating. 2 generic for a piece of equipment. Artifact creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. Equips for 1, but it has this cool ability where at instant speed you can pay black and attach Cranial Plating to target creature you control. So we can give Alesha a humongous power boost. So we could maybe just straight get a kill that way from commander damage. We can boost up another creature that Alesha brought back from the graveyard to make a trade that it wouldn't otherwise make. Or we can just throw this on a Marionette Master before we go sacking and just sack so many things for so much damage. I love it.
Damage. It's insane.
I love it.
Yeah.
And Alesha decks never get to run this because they usually don't have enough artifacts. But when you brew it all around artifacts, man, we have access to this sick card.
Yeah, cranial plating on Alesha. Also, don't forget about her first strike, right? So
right.
That also protects her in the attacking too, which is amazing.
Ooh, and you can have her do her first strike damage and then move the cranial plating before
move it to something else. You're right. That's nuts.
For the regular damage?
That's crazy.
Ooh, cranial plating, man. Number 1 star of the deck.
Crazy. That's so good. Well, that's a great deck right there.
Oh, I can't wait. I think, yeah, man, like I say this very often and I don't always follow through, but I do want to make this one in real life. This is very fun.
Everyone needs an artifact deck, right? I really think that because there's so much fun stuff to do with artifacts, and it really does exist throughout all the colors, except I guess probably green. But if you're building an artifact deck and these blue-red ones that just came out they don't feel like they're your style, or you're not inspired by them, man, look at this Mardu artifact deck right here. That's all about attacking. It's all about recursion and stuff. Like, this is fun. This is good time right here. You're gonna have a blast playing this deck. I think
you're gonna have a blast.
Anyways, that's the show for this week.
Oh boy,
John, that was an amazing deck. I would love to see this deck in action. I sincerely hope you do build it
I think I might.
because I would love to play against it.
Yes,
And
yes.
be frustrated by all of your recurring creatures when I after I kill them all.
Yeah.
Okay, well that was very very fun, very good. We'll see you guys around next week. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Big thanks to all our patrons who make these episodes possible.
Yeah, and if you want to check out more comedy videos, check out our Brews News playlist.
Make sure you follow us on Twitch TV to see when we play live.
If you want to chat with us, head over to Twitter. We're at Commanders Brew.
And please hit subscribe to ding the bell and find out when we got new stuff coming out.
See you next time.
Bye.